An old white police officer lies unconscious on a bed. Machines beep steadily. His loyal German shepherd, Rex, sits beside him, ears perked. Dr. James, black, mid 40s, compassionate but professional, enters, checking the officer's vitals. A nurse adjusts the IV. Off of a stern faced son and tearful wife stand nearby. Rex, say goodbye to Dad. Rex stands, slowly approaching the bed. He sniffs the air, then suddenly stiffens. A low growl rumbles in his throat. His eyes lock onto Dr. James. Nah, what's wrong with the dog? Rex barks sharply, stepping between Dr. James and the officer. He lowers his body, ready to pounce. Whoa, easy boy. He's never done this before. The wife gently touches Rex's head, but he doesn't budge. Instead, his nose flares as if catching a scent. His growl deepens. Something's not right. Dr. James checks the officer's IV bag and suddenly freezes. His eyes widen. This isn't the right medication. The nurse pales. She quickly double-checks the bag. Doctor, this isn't what I prepped. Someone switched it. The son's face darkens. He looks at his father, then at the nurse. Who was in here last? The nurse hesitates. A different doctor. But I thought, I need security. Now. Rex stops growling but remains alert, standing guard beside the officer. Rex wasn't just loyal, he was a protector. Thanks to his instincts, a life was saved that night. Sometimes, what we think we know about people is challenged by the truth. Would you like me to adjust the story in any way? Character profile. Appearance. Maggie is a woman who carries the weight of time with quiet grace. Her silver-streaked hair is always neatly pinned back, and her deep-set eyes hold both warmth and sorrow. Wrinkles on her face tell stories of love, loss, and years of standing by a man she didn't always understand. She dresses simply but elegantly, often in soft cardigans and well-worn dresses. Personality. Maggie is a woman of patience and quiet strength. She has spent decades supporting her husband, even when she didn't agree with his views or choices. She's loving but firm, the type of woman who can silence a room with just a look. Though she appears fragile, her mind is sharp and she knows more than she lets on. Relationship with her husband. She married the officer when they were young, back when he was just a man with dreams and not yet hardened by the world. Over the years, she has seen him change, sometimes for the better, sometimes not. Deep down, she still loves him, but she often wonders if he loves his badge more than his family. The incident at the hospital forces her to reevaluate everything. Role in the story. Maggie is the emotional anchor of the family. She is the first to recognize that Rex's instincts were right and is also the one who urges her husband to thank Dr. James. She doesn't argue or force him. She simply looks at him in a way that makes him realize he has a choice. Remain the man he always was or become someone better. Key scene. After the officer wakes up, Maggie sits by his bed, holding his hand. She doesn't say much at first. When he finally whispers, "Did my dog save me?" she nods and simply says, "Yes, but he wasn't the only one." Would you like me to with her husband, the officer? Maggie's relationship with her husband is one of deep, unspoken understanding. Over the years, she has learned to navigate his difficult personality. She's aware of his flaws, his rigid beliefs, his stubbornness, but she also knows his heart. When he wakes up after the medical incident, it's Maggie who is the first to gently remind him that change is possible, even for someone as set in their ways as he is. Key moment. Maggie quietly presses her hand to his as he wakes, her eyes filled with relief. When he asks if Rex saved him, she simply nods. "He did," she says softly. Then, with a slightly more serious tone, "But you need to start seeing people, all people, differently." 2. With Dr. James, the Black Doctor, Maggie has always been a woman of grace and dignity, but her eyes open further after Dr. Nado. James saves her husband's life. Initially, she might have hesitated to trust him because of her husband's history, but witnessing Dr. James's calm professionalism and compassion allows Maggie to see beyond the color of his skin and the badge of her husband's past. She gradually respects him as someone who didn't just save her husband, but also helped her family avoid a tragic mistake. Key moment. After Dr. James successfully intervenes, Maggie privately thanks him. In her quiet, humble way, she acknowledges that the hospital might have been a different place if Dr. James hadn't been there that night. Thank you for being the better man, doctor. With her son, Daniel Turner. Maggie's bond with Daniel is one of mutual respect. She has always been supportive of him, even when he was estranged from his father due to differing views on race and police work. As Daniel becomes more aware of his father's failings, Maggie subtly encourages him to challenge his father, not out of spite, but to show him a different way. Maggie's quiet wisdom is pivotal in helping Daniel understand that while they may have been wronged in the past, they can still build a better future together. Key moment. Maggie puts her arm around Daniel as they both sit in the hospital room. She looks at him, then at Rex, and says, "Your father has always been blind to some things, but maybe Rex can teach him what you and I couldn't." Actions with her son, Daniel Turner. Maggie's relationship with her son, Daniel, is one of quiet strength and emotional guidance. As a mother, she's always been supportive, but she knows Daniel has faced the same inner conflict about his father's views on race and policing. Over the course of the story, Maggie's role as a silent emotional leader for her family becomes crucial in helping Daniel navigate his feelings toward his father, especially as the family dynamic begins to shift. 1. Initial tension and support. When Daniel first arrives at the hospital, he's already frustrated with his father. The officer's outdated, prejudiced views have caused strain in their relationship, and Daniel has distanced himself for years. Maggie knows how torn Daniel is, having watched him struggle with his father's values. She never pressures him to forgive the officer immediately, but she offers him the quiet comfort he needs. Maggie's patience with Daniel contrasts with her husband's forceful, controlling nature. Key moment. As Daniel stands by his father's bedside, frustrated, Maggie gently places a hand on his shoulder. "You don't have to carry his mistakes, Daniel, but you don't have to let them break you either." Daniel looks at her, the weight of her words sinking in. She doesn't offer answers, just the reassurance that it's okay to feel conflicted. 2. Encouraging change in her husband. As the officer begins to recover and confront the fact that his life was saved by Dr. James, Daniel is deeply resistant. He feels that his father will never change. Maggie understands his doubts, but knows that real change requires patience and compassion, especially with someone who's spent their life deeply entrenched in certain beliefs. She uses her influence to subtly encourage Daniel to continue challenging his father, not with anger, but with quiet, unrelenting love. Key moment. Maggie sits with Daniel in the hospital room after the officer's condition stabilizes. The officer is sleeping, and there's a rare moment of peace. Maggie says softly, "Your father might not be the man we want him to be right now, but you can help him find his way back. Sometimes love isn't loud, it's just steady." Daniel looks at her, then at the officer. He nods, understanding that his mother's patience and guidance are not just about forgiving, but about showing his father that it's never too late to change. 3. The moment of reckoning. When Daniel finally confronts his father about the harm his views have caused, Maggie stands by, but it's clear that this moment is Daniel's. She trusts him to make the right choice, knowing that while his father may resist, Daniel's path forward is about standing up for what is right, no matter the emotional cost. Maggie doesn't intervene directly, but offers Daniel the silent strength he needs. Key moment. Daniel and the officer have a quiet but intense conversation in the officer's hospital room. Daniel's frustration and pain are clear. Maggie stands in the doorway, watching. When the conversation reaches its peak, Daniel turns to his mother, and Maggie's expression softens with understanding. "You did good, Daniel. You didn't fight for what was right. You became it." For a new beginning. By the end of the story, Maggie sees both her husband and her son starting to come to terms with the past. Her quiet leadership has shown both men that love and loyalty don't mean blindly accepting wrongdoings. They mean standing by those you care about while pushing them toward better choices. Maggie's presence is the quiet force that helps bridge the gap between her husband and son, offering hope for reconciliation. Key moment. At the hospital, as the officer wakes up and looks at both Daniel and Maggie, The officer finally begins to understand that his life is not defined by his past actions. Maggie holds his hand, offering him the kind of forgiveness that only someone like her, patient, loving, and strong, can provide. It's not too late to change, love. We're all here, and we're all waiting. Through these moments, Maggie serves as the emotional glue that holds the family together, guiding Daniel to see his father not as a man of the past, but as someone who can still change. Her role as a mother and wife helps create a story of redemption and growth, not just for her husband, but for her son as well. Would you like to explore